Hello. Welcome to Results Washington's Reflection Series, a new video interview series that will not only highlight continuous improvement projects being executed by agencies across the state, but also spotlights the individual subject matter experts of those projects as they share their perspectives and experience on the effort, while also highlighting their achievements, barriers, and lessons learned throughout their project. And for our very first reflection, we have Garrett Landram with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services Division of Child Support, who's here to share about a project he was recently involved in with the implementation that used human-centered design methodology and approach. So thank you, Garrett, so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kick us off, Garrett, tell us a little bit about you, your position, and a little bit about what the Division of Child Support is responsible for.
Sure. Thank you, Teresa. I have been with the Division of Child Support since November of 2012. I started my career with the Division of Child Support in the Seattle field office, and then in 2018 came up to the Tacoma field office to take on supervision of a collection team here in the Tacoma office. I've done a lot of work on our human-centered design project, which we're going to talk about today, and then some other federal grant projects as well, including the BICS project, which is behavioral intervention for child support services, and just some other projects like that. The Division of Child Support, broadly speaking, is the agency responsible for establishing, collecting, and kind of taking care of the child support cases, whether it's because a parent goes on TANF, and we're looking to kind of recover some of the expended TANF payments that have been made out, or whether it's just a custodial parent wanting our assistance in collecting the child support, or even establishing child support for their children. So that's broadly what we do here.
Wow, and that is a big responsibility. So very cool to hear. Speaking of your human-centered design project, can you tell us a little bit about your project and the
Sure.
problem that you were trying to solve?
Yeah. So this all really starts back in 2015 with a larger project that the agency underwent called right size orders. So we knew that we were trying to collect on orders that were too high for parents. And, life changes, circumstances change it. Sometimes a really high earning person gets let go from that job and now they're not earning as much money, or vice versa. Somebody was working a minimum wage job and now they've got a great job, which is what we love to see. But when those things happen in life, we do want to look at adjusting the child support to make sure that it's appropriate for the entire family and making sure that the children are receiving the support that they deserve from all parents involved. So as we've gone through the several stages of this right-sized order, this came up in as our phase 3 end of the right-sized orders. And what we were looking at specifically in phase 3 was parents that were asking the Division of Child Support for modifications on their court-ordered child support. So our agency is responsible for gathering the paperwork together for court-ordered child support. We'll review the documents, and then we get them sent off to the appropriate prosecutor's office, to whatever county is appropriate. But what we had noticed was, while we got a lot of calls for modification paperwork, we got very low return rates. And so that was something that our agency wanted to address. Is clearly there's a need for the modification. What's the barrier for following through with it once we send out the paperwork? And that's really what we were looking to address with this. It happened to align really well with a federal project, a federal demonstration project, sorry, that was looking at specifically implementing human-centered design in human services. So there were three sites. Washington was one of the project sites, and we were the only child support project site. Denver Human Services was another one, and then one of the counties in California, it escapes me right now who that was, but they were the third site. And so underwent a lot of intensive training on human-centered design. We had a really awesome coach from Anthrotech that was there to walk us through the whole process. She was with us every step of the way, and knew that we would struggle a little bit, and she was prepared for that. So it was great to have her too. So yeah, that's kind of where that whole project came about.
Awesome. And I love the fact that you're addressing human services with human-centered design. That just absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, and it's been interesting because when we look at like human-centered design broadly, it's pretty common in the private sector and especially in the tech world. You see human-centered design used a ton, just not so much in human services. And it really kind of is the perfect solution for human services. Why wouldn't you think about doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, exactly. So tell us about how you and your agency solved this problem utilizing centered design.
Yeah, so in the process of going through the human-centered design methodology, one of the stages is some research and discover is one of the stages for human-centered design. And so for that stage, we reached out to our parents and we reached out to our community partners, and we were asking them a series of questions around modifications. And we were generally talking to people that had requested a modification within the prior 2 weeks of those interviews. So it's fresh in their head. They've seen the paperwork at least within the last 2 weeks, hopefully. And I've kind of talked to them about it. And a lot of what we gathered was the paperwork is the hardest thing. And unfortunately, the ideal solution would be for us to change the paperwork, but it's not our form. They're not our forms.
Mhm.
They are the forms belong to the court. So they're the court pattern forms, and our agency doesn't get to change those forms to make it easier for our customers. So we went into a design thinking workshop with our customers, community partners, and some of our own staff even. And with that mindset of saying, look, we want to make it easier for people to fill these forms out and get them back to us with the understanding that we can't actually change the form. What is useful? What do you guys think you need from us? What would you find value in? So we can help you get those forms back to us so we can move your modification process forward. So the solution that we ended up coming out of that design thinking workshop was kind of a amalgamation of many ideas that came from that design thinking workshop. And what we did was created a how-to video on completing the financial declaration form, which when we look at all, I think there's something like 31 pages to this modification document. That appeared to be the most difficult form because there's a lot of technical questions about finances. And so we decided, okay, let's go ahead and start with the financial declaration form. If this is helpful and we find that it's, worthwhile, then we'll at least have tackled the hardest one. If we want to move forward with making additional videos on some of the easier forms in that packet, then we can do that with kind of a guide already in place to what that should look like. So we got that video put together. We tested it with our parents, community partners, and caseworkers with some really just great feedback from our parents and really positive response from kind of everybody.
Oh, that's amazing. You mentioned just kind of having your workshop with everybody involved making these changes. What was your personal experience like working with, the people that you serve so closely?
Yeah, it was an awesome experience. So the workshop happened over, I want to say, a 2 week period. It might have been 1 week, but it was only a couple hours a day, and we would go through the entire workshop over that week, 2 weeks. And you had some customers that were consistently coming back from the first workshop all the way through to the end. And it was great to see that for some of these parents, it really wasn't about, I want this process fixed because it affects me right now personally. But a lot of it was kind of, I want it fixed for everybody in the future that has to go through this. So it was really encouraging, awesome to see that. Our parents had just such wonderful ideas, a lot we would love to implement if we had unlimited budget, unlimited resources. There were just some wonderful ideas that came out of that workshop. But everybody did a great job of just coming together and kind of knowing, okay, this is a little bit of the framework we have to work in and moving forward from there. We really tried not to put them in too tight a box. Really, we tried to set it up with the only thing off the table is we can't change the form itself, and go wild on whatever else you think you might like to see. And they're, like I said, great ideas. Some from the, that's actually pretty doable, to the, oh boy, don't I wish pipe dream. But and that's also kind of part of that design thinking workshop as well, is to not limit what ideas we get from it. The kind of the point of the design thinking workshop is get a ton of ideas, and then we can weed through all those ideas at a later time and figure out what's feasible, what's workable, and go from there. And yeah, I just blown away by how much feedback we got from our customers, community partners, and how receptive they were, and just the awesome ideas that came out of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure they just absolutely just appreciated you elevating their voices and their ideas and really hearing them
Yeah.
when it came to their concerns. That's great. So from your improvement project, did you see the improvements creating more of an equitable outcome for Washingtonians and or state employees based on, improvements that came about from your project?
Yeah, so the hope is actually to hit both categories, for more equitable Washingtonians, as well as just within our staff, making things a little bit easier. So I'll address the first, which is court can be scary. And what we tell people when they call and ask about going through a modification process is you kind of have two options. You hire an attorney, which for many parents is just not a feasible solution. Attorneys are expensive. And then the second option is to go pro se, so which is to go yourself through the court process, file the paperwork, and kind of do that on your own. But that too can be a daunting task. And I'll say that I think our prosecutors across the state that do a lot of the modification work for the agency are really good at working with our parents as they're going through that process to kind of help them through and just kind of know where we're going here. But yeah, the hope is, we want this process to be available to anybody that has a desire to use it. Kind of regardless of what your background is, regardless of your ability to, whether it's comprehend what is going on this form, or where you're at, regardless of where you're at in life, to be able to access our legal system, and kind of go through that. So that's our hope for improvement for Washingtonians out of this project. For our staff, what we're also hoping is that we're, number one, going to see a higher return rate of these modification documents going out. But also for our staff to have a resource to give to parents that don't necessarily include them being on the phone with a parent for 30, 45 minutes, walking them through line by line. And certainly that may be something that a parent needs, and that's something we're happy to do, if that's the case. But I think in many cases, a tutorial video is going to be perfect for what they need. They don't actually need the SEO's 45 minutes going through line by line. They just need some help and a little bit of guidance. So the hope is to reduce a little bit of workload on our caseworkers as well, and kind of see a little bit of relief of pressure there too.
Awesome. That's amazing. Thinking back about your project, what was the biggest challenge that you and your team faced when kind of approaching this and implementing your changes?
Oh my gosh, so many challenges.
Usually.
And that's not to say it's a bad thing. It's some of the things are just challenges you would expect when you're trying to implement a new process cold turkey. I mean, we hadn't done any of this before. As we've gone through the trainings, we can see maybe areas where the agency in the past has kind of maybe mistakenly or accidentally used human-centered design in a good way, but never fully through the whole human-centered design process have we gone. So this has been a little bit of a learning experience for us. Yeah, I think what could be difficult for us was working with knowing when we needed to get other people involved. So we wanted this video to go up on YouTube. So that means now we need DSHS visual communications involved. And that's, of course, outside of our own communications chain as well that needs to be involved. When we were looking at the beginning of this project, and I don't know that this will ever come up again, but we needed to do a, oh my gosh, what are they called? Brain fart. Ethics. It had to go to ethics to review and make sure that this study that was being done was ethically okay and that we weren't running into any problems there. Again, I don't know if that'll come up on any other human-centered design project, but because we had that federal kind of attachment to it, we went through that. And so that was a new process for us that I don't think we, at least those of us, the small team of us on the design work group, had ever had to go through before. And another one of the things, and I think we're probably maybe this is one of the prouder things for our group, is we worked to get a process in place for reimbursing parents for their lived experience. So fortunately, the demonstration project from the feds came with a little bit of funding, not a ton, a couple $1,000, but that was enough for us to be able to purchase gift cards to give to our customers for spending their valuable time coming to talk to us, give us their input. And that was something that we just really didn't have a process for before. And we worked really hard with the assistant secretary at the time, David Stillman's office, to kind of work in a process for using gift cards in the future. Whenever we want to do this again, we now have a process to go through to get approval for that. And so we can now actually reimburse our parents for the time that they give us, because it is a very valuable time. I know we've talked to several single mothers with kids at home, and that can be a little bit hard to get 20-30 minutes away to be able to come talk to us for a little bit without children screaming in the background. And sometimes there were children screaming in the background, and totally fine, we get that. But yeah, it really is a small way for us to thank them for the time that they give us.
Oh, and I'm sure they so appreciated that, and maybe appreciated a little bit of break,
Yeah.
of life. So love that. So thinking back, Garrett, is there anything that you or your team would have done differently, or were there any lessons that you learned that you want to share with our listeners today who may be thinking about tackling something so big as this?
Yeah, we learned a lot. And probably more than I could even summarize in this interview series. But one of the things that we discovered going through was that you need to recruit more people than you think you do. What we came across a lot during all of our interview phases was we would get enthusiastic responses from people saying, yes, I would love to interview with you and do this. But when it came the date time for the interview, we had a lot of no-shows. And sometimes we were able to reach back out to those folks and get them rescheduled for a different time, and it worked. But most of the time we weren't necessarily ever able to get back in touch with them and talk to them again. So my recommendation would be, if you need to talk to 10 people, try recruiting 30. It's not going to, it's not the worst if you talk to all 30, but I can almost guarantee you're not going to talk to all 30. And you may actually end up near the 10. So that was a really good lesson for us. Because I think we spent a lot of time in the project going back and pulling new lists of people to contact to have these interviews and conversations with. So that would be one of the things. The other one, it was kind of a mantra we lived by through the project, which is fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So for us, that was really important because we kind of had an idea of what we thought the solution might be. But you don't know until you start talking to your parents what the real solution is. And so don't get attached to the solution that you think is maybe what you're thinking needs to come out of this. Kind of defeats the purpose of human-centered design. So yeah, I would say just get that into your head. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Let the parents guide you. Let your customers, let your community partners guide you to what the actual solution will be. Yeah, like I said, we just learned so much going through this process. And the other thing I would say is definitely set yourself some deadlines, because we all get really busy. It was something our coach really helped us with, was pushing us forward and saying, okay, and I think the federal demonstration project timeline also helped us with that as well. But, okay, this is where we want to be. Where are you guys at with that? What do you need to do? What resource can I be to help you guys through that? So definitely setting up those timelines is going to be really helpful to keep momentum moving through your project.
Absolutely. And it really just shows your customers too that you are dedicated to this.
Yeah.
So wanting to work through this and make improvements for them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, anything else, Garrett, that you would love to share today?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid of going through the human-centered design process. One of the other things that we've kind of looked at and learned was that it is okay to take parts of human-centered design. You don't have to go through human-centered design from step 1 to, step 1000. It's okay to grab what you like in human-centered design and implement that into other things. There was a great article that Jeannie Bowen had sent me on thinking of human-centered design as a mindset, not so much as a process that has to be followed through from start to end. And that it's okay to implement human-centered design with other things like lean. They don't have to be in silos set apart from each other. So I would say, yeah, don't be afraid to look at the human-centered design methodology and find what speaks to you, and grab that. And it's certainly okay to start small. It may be that you have a project that you want to work on and you're just thinking, I don't know how we're going to go through this whole human-centered design thing. Maybe look at what human-centered design is and pick something from it. Because I think you're going to gain a lot of value from doing that. it's yeah, I can't sing the praises of human-centered design as a methodology enough, because I think it really takes us out of the way government has traditionally operated, which is we know what's good for you, here it is, to you tell us what's good for you so we can help give you what you need from us. Um, and so, yeah, really bringing your customers into that process is really going to be the only way we can move from that old mindset to the new one. I think finally, I'd really like to just thank the folks that have been working on our design team. We've got a couple of people that are no longer with the Division of Child Support. They've moved on to bigger and better places. Jeannie Bowen, which I know is with your group now. We lost her partway through the project. Rachel Lundeen, who is now with DES. So she was a trainer with the Division of Child Support, and she has now moved on to train for DES at a much larger scale. We have Rachel, who has just been amazing at stepping in after other Rachel left. She did a great job at stepping in, kind of putting the video together and really just picking up midway through. And yeah, she just made it seamless. Christine Servine is our district manager out of the Seattle field office. She's kind of been our executive sponsor, and has really been with us the entire project. She has been in step with us. She's gotten her hands dirty with the rest of us. So certainly feels like has done way more than a lot of it you would see from like executive sponsors in the past. Brittany Considine, who is within our policy unit, she has also been with us since the beginning of the project, has been a great asset, and is great for bringing in that kind of extra thought into things. She's, like I said, in our policy unit, she's a policy attorney, so brings that unique perspective of an attorney to a lot of what we do. And then finally, Cassandra Carlson, it's been great having her. She is one of the SEO3s in our Tacoma office. When we first started the project, we had very top-heavy people in this design thinking workshop. Anthrotech very rightly told us you need to find somebody that is on the casework level of things. And Cassandra has been great at bringing that perspective to things, as well as just really digging in and making the phone calls that we need to make and being there for the interviews. So yeah, just really wanted to make sure that we thanked all of those people because they are who made this project go. Yeah, without their hard work, we would not have accomplished what we did. So yeah, really just a big thanks to them.
Amazing. And it sounds like you have a very diverse group with your project to make those changes.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. And, just hearing about your project today, witnessing, that continuous improvement methodology and human-centered design methodology and the principles that come along with that being integrated into your project is amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I just know your community, the parents, everybody that voices that you've elevated throughout this process are just going to see great change. And just the impact you guys are making on the state is just wonderful. So we just really appreciate you coming and sharing a little bit about your project with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.